Yes, part 3 of the Q&A is finally here. No dawdling, let's get right into it.
Sky Slasher asks, 1. What inspired the idea of the Kaiju Wars?
Mostly a love of things like kaiju, anime, and cryptozoology. Mashed it all together, the results speak for themselves.
2. You were also an actor, so what kind of productions were you in?
I've done a lot, and I mean a lot of Shakespeare. From leading roles to bit roles, I take whatever I can get. I also was Sheridan Whiteside in The Man Who Came to Dinner, and Dr. Watson in Hound of the Baskervilles, though that was way back in high school. And, you know, I've done a few chorus roles in some musicals, though musicals aren't really my thing.
3. You've also made it no secret that you really don't like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and while I understand why, and that's perfectly fine, I personally only like it for entertainment, what would you have done to fix it?
Consistency for Emmy's character and rules for the time travel. And making the thematic side a bit more complex than it currently is.
4. Have you ever been to Japan?
Not yet. Hope to go one day, though.
5. Here's one I think no one else might say. Do you like video games, and if yes, favorite genre?
I do like video games, though I don't really think I'd call myself a gamer. Gaming isn't something I consistently do, and in fact I've never owned a game console in my entire life. Most of my gaming that I've done has been done on PC. But as far as genres I enjoy, I like real-time strategies, the top-down variety like StarCraft. I played the heck out of StarCraft way back when. And I'm fascinated by survival horror games. I think those are interesting. They usually come up with some good concepts. As long as they don't overdo the jump scares and actually put some substance into it, they can be really good.
6. You also mentioned that the first Godzilla movie you watched was the end of Son of Godzilla. Since like any movie you loved, you check it out again when you're older, do you still really like it, or is it atomic roast-worthy? Or at least so bad it's good?
I would say Son of Godzilla is a middle-tier Godzilla movie. Not amazing, not terrible, it's precisely the middle of the road.
7. Were you in the military?
I was not. I honestly don't think I would have been cut out for it. But I have all sorts of respect for those who either are, have been, or will be in the military.
8. Aside from Snazzy, Sir Adam, and any other characters you have stored in your attic, do you have any roommates?
Nope. Sometimes the answers really are that simple.
9. This one was written on July 30th, and I know I'm pushing it, I'm sorry, but I just realized a problem Toho's new universe poses to the Monsterverse. I'm not saying it's doom, but are you worried that both movie series might feel the same, and Godzilla fatigue would set in far sooner, or that Toho will have the same problems that the anime trilogy is having, where they try to be different for the sake of it?
Well, recent statements from Toho representatives have made it clear that they'll be taking the world of Godzilla in a different direction from the Monsterverse so as to not have them be exactly the same. And as far as Godzilla fatigue goes, Godzilla's been going for roughly 70 years, and this new batch of Godzilla movies has only just started. I don't think we're going to see much in the way of fatigue anytime soon. Will it happen eventually? Sure. Like I said, with so many different Godzilla series over the years, we've seen it come in cycles. There is a stretch of period where the Godzilla movies are really popular, then they fizzle out, and then a span of time passes and they come back. That's probably what'll happen this time too.
And finally, 10. Memes have come and gone, but the funny ones are forever. What's your favorite dead meme?
I don't really have any. Memes die for a reason, and I don't intend to bring any of them back.
Cody Bratch asks, 1. I've noticed a large lack of videos related to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic on your channel recently. Why is that? Asking as a curious brony.
Well, the policy has always been to only speak about the show when we really have something to say, and recently we just haven't had that much to say about it. Not to say it'll never come up again, but as far as not doing it as frequently as we used to, that's the reason why.
2. How would you feel about a Walking with Dinosaurs style mockumentary set on Monster Island with a strong emphasis on Godzilla?
Well, if Dangerville's Walking with Godzilla is any indication, it's something I'd really like to see more of. I'd especially like to see it sort of done as a big budget affair especially. But so long as Walking with the Godzilla is continued on Dangerville's channel, I'd love to see that continue as well.
3. What do you think has been Disney's biggest misstep in handling Star Wars?
Buying Star Wars in the first place. Disney has always wanted their own big-budget sci-fi franchise equivalent to Star Wars, but every time they've tried, they've always blown it. The reason they bought Lucasfilm is because Star Wars has that built-in audience, so that meant they would be able to make money from it regardless of how it turned out. Which I think is part of the reason why we haven't really seen much in the way of quality come from there. Because they're just using it to make money. They're not really using it to make good work. Which is a shame. I honestly feel like somewhere out there must be an alternate timeline where Disney did not buy Lucasfilms, they didn't run the Star Wars franchise into the ground, and thus they have been forced to do this whole other bit of actual effort, really. They're not making live-action remakes of their old films. They're doing new stuff. They're still leading the charge in terms of creativity, and people still love them much more than people currently do.
4. Do you think Godzilla actually gets a thrill out of fighting other monsters? In other words, do you think Godzilla likes to fight?
Well, I certainly don't think Godzilla hates to fight, but in terms of whether or not he likes it, that would depend on the interpretation. Some versions of Godzilla fight because they must, others fight probably because they like it, and some fight just because the other monster got in his way.
5. What do you think is a good direction the Godzilla series could take next?
Well, there are any number of possibilities, bringing Godzilla in different directions, maybe doing something as a throwback to Godzilla vs. Monster Zero where we take Godzilla into space. The possibilities really are limited only by the imagination.
6. Which one sounds better as the basis for a kaiju? A frog or an electric eel?
Why can't we combine them?
7. How would you rank the Ray Harryhausen movies?
The best would be Jason and the Argonauts and The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Pretty much tied in that regard. The worst would be Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. That one's just not good. And everything else, I'm not sure how I would rank them necessarily, but they're all in between there.
8. Have you gotten a chance to watch Stranger Things on Netflix? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I have indeed. Season 1 is a masterpiece. Season 2 is a step down, but still a worthy follow-up. And Season 3 really should have gone through several more drafts before they finalized it.
9. Last one, I swear. What are your biggest hopes for the future installments of the Monsterverse?
The introduction of more original monsters, an expansion of what kind of monsters can show up, and the introduction of monsters from other series, including the likes of Gamera, Gorgo, Reptilicus, and let's not forget Nessie. We all saw the Monarch outpost at Loch Ness, so it could happen.
Jack Hamilton asks, would you like to see the climax of a King Kong film take place in the Coliseum?
You mean like what happened at the end of 20 Million Miles to Earth? The Coliseum is the Emir's monument. Let's let him keep that.
Snazzy, who is your favorite kaiju and what is your favorite Godzilla film?
I'm quite partial to Terror of Mechagodzilla, as well as Titanosaurus from that film.
How would you have felt if, in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, instead of creating M11, they used Jet Jaguar instead to avoid ripping off the Terminator?
If they had used Jet Jaguar but done everything else exactly the same, they still would have been ripping off the Terminator. It just would have been slightly less obvious.
What are your thoughts on people like ETN saying the general audience wouldn't accept things like Mechagodzilla or Gamera?
If general audiences can accept Rocket Raccoon and Groot, they can accept Mechagodzilla and Gamera. All that matters is that the movie presents them in a way that allows us to accept them.
Nolan Ueno asks, 1. I'm planning to make my own video explaining to non-tokusatsu/kaiju fans where to start in the franchise and why they should. But I need your advice on what tokusatsu/kaiju movies and TV shows to recommend they start with that are good storytelling. All I have so far is Godzilla 1954.
I've said in the past that Godzilla 2000 is a good place to start. The Heisei Gamera trilogy could also be a good one. You might also consider the Ultra series, Ultra Q, Ultraman, Ultra 7, etc., etc. That's a good way to introduce people to the basics of kaiju and tokusatsu in easy-to-digest, bite-sized pieces, short episodes rather than feature-length movies.
2. How would you continue Godzilla Jr.'s story?
I'd probably do some sort of movie built around the uncertainty of Godzilla Jr. After he absorbs all of Godzilla's radiation and finally matures at the end of Godzilla vs. Destroya, let's have a movie where nobody's sure what he'll do. Have a different monster show up, of course, whether it would be a returning monster from the past or a new monster, I don't know. But either way, it would be another threat, and now everyone's wondering, is Junior still friendly towards humans or not?
3. What Japanese actress can play Miki Saigusa in the US movies that can speak English?
I don't know off the top of my head how many Japanese actresses can speak English, so I don't know how to answer that one.
David Edward Eichelberger asks, how did you meet Snazzy?
He showed up one day and didn't leave. That's the short version. There's a much longer version that one of these days I swear I will get around to telling.
Christian Blanchard asks, here's a story idea. What if a kaiju-sized alien comes to Earth to hunt down our favorite giant beasties, not realizing that they were just movies, pure fiction? P.S. It's a comedy satire style idea.
That sounds like a really interesting idea. Kinda like the Three Amigos or Galaxy Quest, but with giant monsters. You should write that down.
Jack Hamilton, again, asks, what are your thoughts on the cancelled Superman Lives movie?
It probably would have been bad, but it probably would have been fascinating at the same time.
Omni, Snazzy, and Sir Adam, can you rank the live-action Jokers?
I'm not sure I can rank them because they each fit their respective movies pretty well. The Joker in each one is designed to be exactly the kind of Joker he must for the sake of that story. So, I would say it's hard to rank them. I personally don't think Cesar Romero's Joker gets enough love. I shall cast my vote in Mr. Jack Nicholson's direction.
Omni and Snazzy, who is your favorite DC villain?
I don't know if he's my favorite, but the Clock King, as he appeared in Batman the Animated Series, was pretty cool. That was a good example of how you could take a rather stupid villain from the comics who was based on a ridiculous gimmick and actually make him a viable threat. Like I said, don't know if he's my favorite, but he does stand out to me. Personally, I would pick Two-Face.
What do you think a Batman film directed by Werner Hertzog would be like?
It would certainly be interesting if he styled it like one of his documentaries, but all I can say for certain is that it would be the height of irony for an actor playing Batman to be directed at gunpoint. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about.
How would you have felt if the DCEU started with a Justice League film as originally planned, but it was basically a superhero version of the Magnificent Seven?
Well, that's practically what happened anyway, though I guess if they had started with Justice League, they wouldn't have been able to do the Death of Superman arc prior to it, which would require a whole bunch of other changes to be made. But I actually like the way Justice League implemented Superman in there. Just to explain what I mean by that, oftentimes Justice League stories try to find ways of arbitrarily taking Superman out of the fight because he's perceived as too powerful. So, one thing I appreciated about the live-action movie was that it made Superman the linchpin for victory. You had to actually bring him in to guarantee victory. So, like I said though, it was practically what you described anyway.
Who has the better villains, Batman or Spider-Man?
I would have to say Batman. It's not that Spider-Man has inferior villains, but Batman's villains are definitely more iconic. Part of that's because he's been around for longer, but hey, the results are the same.
Omni, Snazzy, and Sir Adam, who do you think would win in a fight, Batman or James Bond?
Well, as a general rule, Batman always wins, but I wouldn't necessarily rule James Bond out. Guys, what do you think? Probably the Dark Knight. Lex? I would not count 007 out of the running myself.
unlike the Caped Crusader, he does have a license to kill.
Well, there you have it. That's our consensus.
Manda1771 asks, 1. Ever consider doing an episode of GBO and FG or Atomic Roasts on the movie Reign of Fire?
Not an atomic roast, but definitely a genre bender's obscurities and flawed gems, because I think Reign of Fire is an underappreciated movie. Really should get around to actually making it one of these days.
2. Ever consider doing an episode of GBO and FG on Giant Robo the Animation?
Take the previous answer and replace Reign of Fire with Giant Robo the Animation. Again, that is a really good one.
3. Ever consider doing a top 16 worst giant monster movies video?
I have considered it, but then again, not entirely sure how I would go about doing it. Especially since I'm not sure how I could condense into very quick snippets exactly why these movies are so bad. I mean, you saw how well that worked out when I did it for Pacific Rim Uprising. Of course, then when I tried to expand it, well, let's not dwell on that, shall we?
4. Best giant monster movie of the 2010s so far?
Well, obviously, the 3 MonsterVerse movies and the first Pacific Rim. But as far as things that weren't produced by Legendary, I think I'd have to give it to Rampage. Even though it's still a bad adaptation of the game, it's a good monster movie overall, and I think that counts for a lot.
5. Ever consider doing a top 10 list of movies that you hate but everyone else likes and vice versa?
I have indeed. Maybe I'll tackle those ideas as an end-of-the-year sort of thing.
6. Have you ever read the Leviathan trilogy by Scott Westerfeld?
Not yet, but I have read Michael Moorcock's Nomad of the Time Streams trilogy. Given the title of the second book, I can assume there was a bit of influence at play.
7. Between the 2 Pacific Rim movies, what is your favorite Jaeger and Kaiju?
Well, obviously I'm not going to pick anything from Uprising, so I'll be sticking with the first movie. Favorite Jaeger would probably be Crimson Typhoon, actually. I think that's an interesting one, with the 3 arms, the sleek red design. He's pretty cool. And as far as the Kaiju, gotta be Otachi. Otachi is my favorite Kaiju of that whole thing.
8. Do you think that the MCU should do a giant monster movie? If so, which characters do you think should be in the movie out of the options that I provide? Hero monster, devil dinosaur or American Kaiju. Villain monster, Fin Fang Foom or Giganto. The giant robot built by humans to fight the monsters, Red Ronin or Leopardon.
Absolutely. I would love to see Devil Dinosaur, Fin Fang Foom, and Red Ronin together in a movie. I don't know that we're ever going to get it, and according to Marvel's schedule, we probably won't be for a while. In fact, there have been rumors that since the Eternals will take place in prehistoric times, that maybe that'll be the closest we get to seeing Devil Dinosaur show up. And it might just be a cameo at that. I hope not. But if they ever did decide to go the giant monster route, those 3 would be my picks. Always have been.
9. Do you think Kong should have a bigger rogues gallery in the same vein as Godzilla?
No, I don't think he should. That doesn't feel like a good fit for him. Kong's never really been about being the hero who fights villains. Kong's main opponent is humanity. That's the thing. Godzilla can have all kinds of opponents, and he can take them all on, but that's not really Kong's territory.
10. If the producers behind the MonsterVerse decided to make another Kong movie, how would you go about making the story, characters, monsters, etc.?
I suppose that depends on the outcome of Godzilla vs. Kong, assuming of course in either scenario he would survive. If Kong wins, we'd need some sort of movie establishing what things are like now that he is the new alpha. If Godzilla wins, we need a movie establishing what Kong does now that he has been knocked down a few pegs. So, we'll see what happens.
11. If I were to make my own giant monster story, how would you make a giant monster that is inspired by Godzilla rather than have it be a ripoff?
Read my book to find out. Granted, some people don't think I did the best job, but I did what I could.
12. What is the origin of your channel logo or symbol?
It's something my parents got for me many years ago because they knew I like unusual things. And so far, I've never seen anything else like it. I really don't know where it came from. I just know it's different, and I know it's recognizable.
13. If you could suggest a movie title to the Criterion Collection, what would it be and why?
I would say Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, the original silent version. That needs a Criterion release with all sorts of behind-the-scenes content and special features, and it's never really gotten that kind of proper release. It's gotten all kinds of different releases, mind you, but nothing that really truly explores how important it is. So that would be my recommendation.
14, last one. With Rampage being a pleasant surprise as far as giant monster movies go, do you think that a Primal Rage movie could work?
Oh, it could definitely work, but it would need to be a very different kind of movie. Think something along the lines of 1 million years BC or when dinosaurs ruled the earth, but with less focus on the humans and more focus on the dino gods. And I'm not entirely sure that any production studio would be willing to greenlight that kind of movie. Even though if they did greenlight it and it was put in the hands of people who really got it and did the best they could with it, it would probably really work. But, you know, actually, I gotta be honest, a Primal Rage movie is one of those things which, if I ever get to a particular point where I have the ability to do so, I would push to get that made. But I'm not in that position currently, so at this point, who knows?
Sky Slasher, once again, I guess that brings us full circle. Anyway, Sky Slasher asks, for the heck of it, Sir Adam Lexington's questions. 1. How long were you on the channel?
That is an odd question. I've been here from the very start.
2. How old are you if you were the original airship captain?
To be perfectly honest, I stopped counting after a certain time.
3. Why do you look like Omni?
Seeing as how I've been around for longer, the real question is, why does Master Omniviewer resemble me? And I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
4. This is somewhat related to the first one, but screw it. How do you know Omni?
I was investigating certain anomalies. Masters Omniviewer and Snazzy Chapeau are at the epicenter. I've stayed to see what happens.
Finally, 5. Have you been interested in flying any other types of aircraft?
My dear fellow, there is no greater pleasure than flying an airship. Why on earth would I trade that for some other craft?
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, as well as subscribe to the channel for more content of a similar nature. Also, check the description for links to our Twitter, DeviantArt, and Patreon pages, as well as the Amazon link for the novel Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, penned by yours truly. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.